Is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello, good evening, and welcome to another live episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 254 on this very, very warm Monday evening. I've got to be honest with you, this brand new Charles Crowley t-shirt is sticking to me already. But today I've got a fantastic guest, one of the best wrestlers in the UK, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, the Nigerian Kaiju Warren Banks. Warren, thank you for joining me. How you doing, buddy?
I am good, thank you. I am good. I have a puppy roaming around causing mayhem. He's lying down now. I think
we've got Zuko as our special guest, who may make an appearance at any time. Hi, Zuko. But for anybody watching at home, for anybody joining us live on Twitch, on YouTube, or on Facebook Live, please get in touch. Send us your questions. If you've got a question for the Nigerian Kaiju Warren Banks, please get in touch. Send them through to us using your chosen device. And I'll do our very best to bring them up on screen and to answer all your questions during the course of this broadcast. It will be going about 60 minutes or so. But Warren, I've got to ask you first of all, you put out a little statement a few weeks ago, and it was only a few weeks ago. I'm going to bring it up on screen here if I can find it. Just basically explaining that for the last few months before this statement, you'd been wrestling with a torn rotator cuff, and you just found out. Before we go into the statement and all that good stuff, how are you feeling at the moment? What's your current kind of physical situation? How's the rotator cuff and how's your rehabilitation?
Bear with me. He nearly knocked over a giant crate because he's super strong despite being tiny. I'm good. As you can see, I'm able to move the arm and stuff now. It's a long way off from being healed. Rehabbing. I'm doing the exercise given to me by the physio. I'm doing really light kind of mobility work with resistance bands and things like that. I'm playing with the puppy and picking him up and stuff. It all counts, I guess.
That's all right.
So getting there. Day to day is becoming. When it happened, day to day life was horrible because everything hurt. Whereas now it's I can pick up a bag of shopping and not feel it too much. So it's all moving in the right direction.
Yeah. And what's the expected recovery time for an injury like that? I know it probably varies from person to person, but what about yourself? I'm guessing you've spoken to specialists. What have they said about a prognosis or particular recovery time?
So they said for me to be able to start lifting weights again, it will be about 4 months from the date of injury, which occurred in May. So next month I should be able to start lifting weights. And within myself, I do feel like if I wanted to, I could do so. So I feel like we're on track for that. In terms of returning to wrestling, because I showed them Instagram videos and stuff to kind of give them an idea of what I did and how it occurred. They were looking at that and they were like at least about 8 months from the date of injury. So not until 2023. Beginning of 2023 is the outlook. But I'm still waiting for an MRI to make sure there's no further hidden damage or nasty surprises in there. And if I don't need surgery, then it's under a year. We're just strengthening.
Well, that's good that it's going to be under a year, and I know you've got a lot of fans out there that are kind of, eager to see you back because you was on an absolute tear in 2022. Do you remember how it happened or how you think it might have first occurred?
It was at the show Good in Milton Keynes on May 21st, and I was shook my head, and then I was like, it was on this date at this time. But I don't remember when it happened. I just remember coming backstage. I even cut a promo, so I did the match with Gene Money. Got backstage, cut a promo upstairs, sat down, take a deep breath, chatting to a few people, went to go and take my shoelace off, and I'm like, I can't undo my shoes, I can't move my arms, I can't move my arm across my body. What's happening? And this pain and this horrible ache started to set in, and I was in agony and I needed help to get changed. Thankfully, my car's an automatic, so I drove home with one hand, just was in bits. Thankfully, my dad's a medical doctor, so we had some good stuff at home to kind of help me through the night. But it was a rough. How I wrestled on it, I don't know. It was a rough.
Well, I was going to ask. I mean, because I suppose for the most part, you still kept a full schedule because I saw you performing or being advertised, for the various promotions you performed for, including Progress. Did you miss many dates, and did it kind of feel like it was getting progressively worse with each match? Kind of how did it hold up during that time?
I'm sorry, when dogs go quiet, you want to make sure they're not eating anything. It's fine.
No, that's fine.
Did I miss many dates? I missed a few. So there are a
Right.
few full weekends that I wasn't able to honor, and I was only able to do like one day, which wasn't ideal for me professionally or financially as well. It seemed to not get worse with each match. I would come out of each one no worse off than when I went in. It wasn't helping, but it wasn't making it any worse. But I think because I was mindful of the injury, I was performing within myself to a degree and trying to stay safe on it. I'm not doing things to aggravate it. So I think that may have helped, in all honesty.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about Super Strong Style in a minute, because I know you've had a very kind of rich 2022 with progress. But what was the point? What was the stage when you decided that you really needed to get it checked out and get it checked out properly? And when you kind of found out that it was a torn rotator cuff, what was that kind of point where you decided, yeah, I can't take it anymore, I've got to get it checked out?
Super Strong Style 16 was crazy in terms of his mum's home, so he's going nuts. Really sorry. Puppy losing his mind.
See you later, Zuko. See you later.
We'll have him back. But in terms of the questions, when did it start to go too far? I'm trying to think of like when the breaking point was. I think it was just I was focused on getting through Super Strong Style. That was like number one. And then once that was done, I kept calling the GB to try and get an appointment, and they just weren't any available. And I think the next one I got was like, I think I called them a week after Super Strong Style, and I had to wait a month to see somebody.
Right.
Wow. And yeah, I know. And then I finally got in. So I think I continued to wrestle. I think I did a few dates between that, and I got in there. And the GP wasn't available, but physiotherapists were. So they did all these exercises and did all these tests, and they were like, "You've torn your rotator cuff. There's no question. Like, it's bad. You need to try and book in to get referred for an MRI," which I was able to do online, thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then upon hearing that, I feel like not knowing what it is, you can kind of go, whatever. But knowing it's a rotator cuff, and what that can lead to down the line if you keep aggravating it, I was like, oh, now I'm in real danger. I need to stop. Like, it's not a strained muscle. It's not a pull. It's not a chip on a bone or something. It's something that controls the mechanism of moving my arm up and down, which if I ruin will put me in pain for like the rest of my life. Let me stop. So yeah, I just kind of had to weigh up, and that was the turning point. Knowing what it was made it much more real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
On the subject of Super Strong Style, because you said that you kind of that was your breaking point. That was kind of, you know, when you decided that something was really, really wrong. And I think anybody that saw your matches, certainly in the later rounds of Super Strong Style, would have noticed that you were struggling a bit on that side. But talk to me about that weekend. Then I mean, it's never easy kind of in any sort of tournament structure, but wrestling kind of 4 matches over 3 nights couldn't have been easy. And I think it was Big Damo in the first round, wasn't it? Kid Lykos in the second round, Johnny Progress in the semi. We're going to talk about Ridgeway in a separate question, but tell us about your experience of Super Strong Style, and in particular those 3 opponents. And I've got to say, you had a hard route to the final with those 3 in particular. But tell us your experience of that weekend and those 3 opponents in particular.
So with Big Damo, I had no idea what I was going to do because he's big. He's Big Damo. He's got tons of experience as well. So it was sort of like, I thought if I could weather it, I have, like with the spear, it's one of those ones where it's like, if I can hit you with it, I could probably win, right? So it's just try and survive, pick an open, and then go for it, which is what I ended up doing. I'm usually used to being stronger than people, and that's one thing that like the shoulder took away. It's like I can't throw people about, I can't overpower them anymore, which would have been tough to do anyway. So as you can see, I started kicking. I did a lot of kicking that weekend. I started throwing kicks. It was kind of like stick and move, and then just spear at the end with everything I got, and 1, 2, 3. Kid Lykos 2 was the one where the plan went out the window, and it was just killing. Like it was just.
Get it done quickly. Get it out of the way.
It was one of those where I just put him down. Just put him down. I'd gone from wearing the shoulder brace to like tape because I found that the brace was limiting the mobility a lot, and it was just getting in the way, like it'll brush up against my face or my eye and stuff like that. It was weird things like that, so I had to take it off. Oh, it's exciting. Oh. Yeah, so with Lykos was like just putting down as fast as possible. Did he just throw up? Oh, that poor baby. I'm sorry, the puppy's going nuts. Yeah, so it was like put Lykos down as fast as you can. Yeah, it was just pure anger. And then I feel like the shoulder went in that match. Like it was bad before. Did you just lick it off? But yeah, he did. I know.
It's all happening tonight, folks.
Yeah, sorry, man. It's kicking off. Probably should have been like, we need to reschedule this when he's older. And yeah, no. So the shoulder went in that match. I feel there was a move that we did. I think it was like a roll through or something, and I went into it like neck and thingy first, and whatever was bad before became like 10 times worse. It just still feeling in that arm, and then we kind of like we recovered, we got through it. But I feel like that was the point of like, okay, now I'm ruined. Like this is bad. Like I don't know if I can do this anymore. Bad.
Because on day 3, Warren, you had 2 matches, didn't you? I mean, it started with, a worldwide superstar, Johnny Progress, no less. Especially after the match you had the day before. But I mean, what was it like facing an international superstar like him? And I'm guessing he was pretty cool backstage and kind of understood what you were going through. But give us your kind of take on your experience of facing John Morrison, Johnny Progress on day 3.
So to lead up to that, I'll just touch on what you said about like you were super cool backstage. So I was like, I'm not sure if you're a Star Wars man.
Yeah, big time.
You know how Darth Vader is constantly in the back to tank? That was me in the physio's room, just constantly in there, like massage, the TENS machine, ultrasound, like everything. And I would just roll out, wrestle, and then go straight back in, like to get beaten up. So he was in there with me, like he just came in and just sat in there with me because he'd had similar issues. So he was just talking through what he went through, and we were just chatting. Like he's just sitting there, we're having a conversation, and I'm getting like horribly beaten up with elbows and stuff, and in the sore muscle, and we're just chatting about wrestling and stuff, which is really cool of him. He's such a nice guy, such a nice bloke. Yeah. So then to get in the ring with him, and I'm like, there are moments where you catch yourself. There are moments when you catch yourself, and I'm like, I used to play as this guy in video games, and now I get to wrestle him. That's nuts. Like that's crazy. Only in wrestling. So yeah, I was just taking in that moment and then realizing I need to beat this guy too. I like him, but I need to kick his ass. Like so
absolutely.
Yeah, unfortunately the match wasn't what either of us wanted it to be. He was dealing with a lot of issues as well, injury wise, as was I. So like I remember seeing I think somebody online was like, oh, it wasn't as good, it didn't live up to the hype, but it didn't seem prepared. I'm like, it's not that we weren't prepared, we were just falling apart physically. We had a chat afterwards, and he's like, he's desperate to come back and kind of, he doesn't need to redeem himself because he's wrestled John Cena. He's got nothing to prove to anybody, you know what I mean? But he wants to come back and like have a nice run of matches in the UK when he's healthier. And I'm like, yo, when I'm healthy as well, let's do it. So,
and the thing is, Warren, that would have been both your 3rd match in the space of 2 days, which is pretty grueling for anybody, to be honest with you, especially if you're a bit banged up and Johnny's experiencing a few injuries as well. But I suppose if you're going to face anybody when you're in kind of that sort of physical condition, facing a very experienced, smooth working pro like Johnny Progress is probably the best scenario, really, because he's going to look after you, even if the match isn't quite what you expected.
No, 100%. And he did exactly that. Like it's him having lived through these really bad injuries he's had, he knows exactly what to do and what not to do, exactly how to move you and how not to move you, like little things like that. Even the pace that he moves at, it's like they say smooth is the word. He doesn't move fast. Like to me, it looks like he's moving in slow motion, but I think but that's because we know where he's going, if you know what I mean. Like I know a clothesline is coming. He's moving really slow, but I realize it's not slowness. He's just really smooth. He's just really silky. But yeah, no, he's dope.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, as you explained, you'd love to have a rematch match under better circumstances in the future. But still, I mean, I was there and I loved the match anyway. But and then there was the final, and then there was Ridgeway. I got to be honest with you. I think he turned it up during Super Strong Style, and I think his level of viciousness and intensity kind of went through the roof. And I think he was the same with G Money in the semi-final. I think he was the same with Dempsey and Dean Allmark in the earlier rounds. And with you, he was ultra vicious, really, really hard hitting. Give us your experience of that match. I don't know how much of it you remember, but from our vantage point, it looked pretty full on. And I would not have wanted to be in front of Ridgeway that night.
Yeah. I think one thing to start with is like, I'm not afraid of Chris Ridgeway. Like a lot of people are, oh, he hits harder. I'm like, I don't care. I'm wrestling with one arm. I'm killing people. I know what this is. Like I know what's gonna happen. It is gonna hurt. It hurts all the time. What's a little bit more? So like in terms of getting in there and being face to face with him is like, I faced him a few times. Like the first time I choked him out, the second time he beat me. So this was like the rubber match, if you will. And I agree with you. He did turn up in terms of his intensity and his viciousness. I feel like as the tournament progressed, we witnessed him kind of take the next step. Like he's always been that guy in lowercase, but then like when the tournament was done, he was that guy in all caps. 5 exclamation marks underlined and bold and that. So it was interesting to see what it was like after the fact, and I removed myself from it, and I kind of go, as a viewer or as a fan, as someone who's been following him more, following like progress specifically, watching him go from, again, that guy in lowercase to that guy in all caps, doing the same, but doing it 10 times more efficiently and 10 times harder. It's to be admired. Would rather have not gotten kicked to death, but it's like, it's good to be, it's impressive from a working standpoint. It's really impressive what he's done.
Yeah, 100%. And I know before Super Strong Style, and I create some content for Progress, doing the preview shows for them, and I had Lee and Martin and Mad Dog on, and they said, Jonas, who do you think, who are your picks for Super Strong Style? I goes, well, I've only got 2 picks, and that's, one in one half and one in the other. I've got Gene Money and I've got Warren Banks. And I said, those two are going to meet in the final. It's got to happen. Yeah. And I think Chris Ridgeway kind of went under the radar a little bit with a lot of people because he's so consistent and he does what he does. But you and Gene, have had a terrific 2022, but Ridgeway just absolutely turned it up during that tournament. But I mean, I'm going to bring up some pictures now of that match, and obviously we know that he kicks hard, and you kick hard as well. You've already said that, not taking anything away from you. But at the end, he did win, and he was very dominant. And the way, I mean, after the match, the aftermath, we had all the streamers, we had the boos. Obviously, he was not the very popular victor at the end of it, but he got the chair from the front row, didn't he? And put it across you and sat down in the ring. How did that feel? Kind of, how did that feel? As a competitor, that must have pissed you off.
It did, and it didn't. I'll be honest with you. I told you, like, Super Strong Style took a lot out of me. Like, I didn't have a exit strategy after it. Like, it sounds really dramatic, but essentially I went into Super Strong Style and it's like I either destroy myself and become champion or I destroy myself and I lose, but I didn't see myself walking out of it and being able to continue wrestling because I knew the shoulder wouldn't hold up. And I was like, Super Strong Style will probably kill it for real. We'll probably break it for real. And it did, unfortunately, but I knew that going in. So the kind of anger or kind of rage towards someone doing that after the fact was massively overshadowed by me going, I don't know how long I've got left doing it. So it sounds, not to undersell it, because here it does. Like I see the picture and I'm like, you mother, you know what I mean? I see the picture and it's just like, someone to do that to you, of course it pisses me off. It does, but at the same time, it's something that gets put in perspective when you kind of accept that you won't be able to do it at that level for much longer due to injuries you've got. So angry, yes. Sad, yes, but not because of him. Want to get him back? 250 million%.
There you go. And that's the fuel that you need. I mean, there's a ready built story there. That's the fuel you need so that the next time, it's on a more even playing field. And he's going to have Warren Banks at 110%. We've had a few people reach out to us already. Let's have a quick look at some questions that have come through.
I'm going to adjust the lighting while you do that. Bear me one moment.
No, you carry on. You carry on. We've had a lot of questions come in, and look, I want to thank everybody that's reached out via YouTube, via Facebook, before the podcast. So I'm going to try and here we go. So it's back. So WWE Mindhead have sent watching us live on YouTube. Thank you very much. I think we've already answered this to a certain degree. Plans if you get a shot at Ridgeway again. So obviously you had one game plan kind of facing Ridgeway for Super Strong. So you faced him before. You said that it was the rubber match essentially. You've beaten him before. What sort do you think your tactics will be different the next time, Warren?
Yeah. If I come back to wrestling, I'm not going to just rush in and be like, I want to fight Ridgeway again. Like, there's a lot of areas in my game, there's a lot of holes I need to patch up. Like, I'm used to being able to out-athlete people. I used to be able to like jump higher, run faster, hit harder, etc. When you lose an arm, it kind of throws it out the window. And I used to do a lot of athletics. I used to do a lot of sprinting. And one of the things was when you get tired, which you will do, technique will carry you through. With wrestling, I'm lacking in the area of technique. So when my strength went, I didn't have the technique to carry me through. So that's something that I want to improve. I feel like if I do come back to the ring, you're going to see a more technical Warren Banks than you've seen before. And, I'll take it to Riddy, knowing that I'm stronger than him, I'm bigger than him, I'm faster than him. He just has more technique than I do right now. Yeah. Anyway.
There we go. And Tate Mayfair's been in touch. Tate Mayfair's is watching via YouTube. Cheers, Tate. He's my most recent guest after my summer break. But there we go. Tateness is greatness on the Wrestling with Josh podcast with Warren Banks. Keep watching, Tate. Keep watching and keep sending in those questions. We've also had Troy Owen watching via YouTube. He's going to wrestle Ridgeway and beat his ass in redemption for Warren. So
it's not worth it.
And also watching via YouTube, we got the Prince of Strong Style. Warren, you were one of the most heavily featured people during Progress's No Fan shows in the Peckham era. How tricky did you find it adapting to that situation? Hope you have a speedy recovery. So great question there from Prince of Strong Style. How did you adapt, or how tricky did you find it adapting to the Peckham era?
It was incredibly weird the first time. When you do your entrance and it's like, wow, there's nothing in this room, like nothing. You have the camera people, the commentary desk, the ring announcer, the referee, and that's it. Like, it was tricky, but I feel like I took to it quite well. Like, in the absence of a crowd, you kind of set your own rhythm. Fans obviously are a big part of wrestling. Like, it's an interactive experience, which is why everyone loves it so much. But without necessarily the clapping and the cheering and the booing and the yaying, the pace becomes different, and the ups and downs and the flow of it becomes different. And I feel like I adapted to it fairly well, and I was really comfortable with it. Like, I can't think of a more weird situation than wrestling in a room full of nobody for 9 months, but we did it. So yeah, it was tricky to begin with, but I feel like I took to it quite well.
One of my questions a bit later on was going to be about the Peckham era, so I might as well kind of lead into that now. And how did you get the opportunity to be a part of that? Because I think you'd had a dark match with Progress in early 2020, and I'm sure you would have had a lot more action with Progress had we not have had the enforced layoff that we had with the pandemic and everything. And then obviously early 2021, you're on our TV screens, you're on the WWE Network, you're on Peacock, in the Peckham Theatre for Progress. How did that opportunity come around? I mean, it's, like I say, it's a fantastic opportunity, and like I say, it's really kind of taken your career to the next level, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, 100% it did. Like when I think like the first batch of shows aired from that, I got like a bunch of emails and DMs about booking. So I was like really grateful for it.
Yeah.
How it came about. So this is peeling the curtain back a little bit, which explains why I have so much beef with him in the ring. Um, there was someone instructed in the wake of speaking out to be like a talent liaison. Um, Worked alongside a charity regarding safeguarding, and their plan or their aim was to make sure that the locker room was sort of a healthy, positive vibe, which had been missing before. Certain behaviors wouldn't be tolerated, so on and so forth. So one of the things that they did was ask like a nucleus of progress wrestlers who have been proven to be professional, have been proven to not engage in less than safety behavior. Yeah. Who would you recommend? Who do you like, or who do you think would be a good fit? And it was Kid Lykos. It was Kid Lykos who said, like, yeah, you should get in touch with Warren Banks. He's good. So his endorsement, he won the Progress Tag Championship in his first match. He's like key to so many moments. Like his endorsement went a long way of getting me through the door. And then, yeah, like the rest was what you saw. But I wouldn't be there if not for Kid Lykos.
Absolutely. And sticking with Progress just a little bit longer, because it's like I say, a lot of people's favorite promotion, but Ashley Clements, kind of a fan who goes around all of the shows around the UK, sent in a question before the show. What have been some of your standout matches for this year? He did put down a few. He mentioned the Luke Jacobs match for the Atlas title. I think that was a semi-final match. Ridgeway at Super Strong Star final, the 6-man scramble at Chapter 127, and of course the Gresham match at the anniversary show. Would those be some of your standout matches or moments of 2022, and have you got any more that you might add to it?
For speaking specifically about Progress, yeah, I would say those were it. I'll probably say probably Gresham would be at the top, if only because due to how horrific the pain was, I wasn't able to enjoy Super Strong Style 16 as much as I would have liked. The 6-man scramble was a good laugh as well. I really enjoyed it, but like that was a cool match, man. There was some cool people in that. The Gresham match, like it wasn't caught on camera. I think only one side of the room could see it. But like as Gresham was walking out, I had this ridiculous smile on my face because I was like, this is happening. Like again, similar to the John Morrison thing, you step out of it for a second and you go,
yeah.
I used to watch this guy on YouTube. I used to look at Progress as this thing that, maybe I'll be lucky if I get there. And now I'm main eventing their 10th anniversary show against one of the best wrestlers on the planet. Like, how cool is that? so all pressure just left, and I was like, let's just have a great flipping time. And I believe we did, man. That room was hot. Like, I believe we had a great time. It was fun. I'll probably say Gresham was at the top for sure.
Yeah, and you've had a few encounters with Luke Jacobs, haven't you? Certainly since Progress came back in early 2021. I think didn't you face each other in the final of Natural Progression Series that year, the semi-final of the Atlas title tournament this year, and maybe once more. So there's maybe some unfinished history between the two of you there as well.
Yeah, he's it's a weird one. Like I say it's a weird one. It's not. We just like to hit each other. But yeah, we had the Natural Progression. He won. I then hunted down all of Northwest Strong and beat them all. And then we had the Atlas tournament where he won again. So I think it's like, depending on my motivation at any given time, I can either beat Luke Jacobs or he can beat me. It just depends what my mood is on the day. But when I did beat him, it was very much not that I wasn't on a mission for the other ones, but that was for titles and opportunities that I had every faith will come at some point down the line. If not then, it would be down the line. But when it was me hunting them down, it was personal, and I feel like I may have put in a bit more effort in trying to take them out than I did fighting them for a title or a title opportunity in this case anyway.
Yeah. And what about this guy, the OJMO? You had a classic encounter with him for, I think it was RCWA just a couple of months ago. And like I say, you two just brought the house down. You just, give us your feelings on that individual and that match, because that would probably be, one of your top matches of the year when all said and done.
100%. Yeah. But I'm done for the year. So it is. I think it's one of those ones where, because of the circumstances of the match with the show getting delayed due to the ring breaking and us not going out until like 10 o'clock at night nearly, and no one had left because they wanted to see it. And I was like, wow, we need to give them something special, which I believe we did. OJMO Michael Oku is all the stuff that gets said about him, about how good he is. It's all true. Like, he's tremendous at working the crowd. His timing is perfect. His execution is perfect. Like, such an easy dance partner, so easy to work with. Like, he gets it. He just gets it. Yeah, wonderful competitor, wonderful match. I feel being biased maybe because I was in it, but like it was. Yeah, you say it's one of the matches of the year. Like, yeah, it's up there with Gresham in terms of just the match for me.
Yeah.
That made my year.
And the funny thing with OJMO is that he is legitimately, like I say, up there as one of the best wrestlers in the UK, in Europe. But I don't think he's featured in enough promotions, in my opinion. And I think he needs to be seen everywhere. Like I say, he's wrestling for Rev Pro, OTT, some of the bigger promotions. But do you agree with me when I say he needs to be kind of maybe everywhere, really? He's one of those that does need to be featured everywhere.
I hear you on that, and I think like that's touching on a topic that maybe for another podcast at another time. But the idea of being everywhere, like sometimes quality is better than quantity.
Yeah.
I'm sure for him in terms of like repetitions of wrestling and getting more in-ring time and sharpening your skills and stuff, more matches is always good. But then you look at me, who was everywhere, and I've got one arm, like. Hey, Zuko. Okay, see, the puppy agrees.
100%.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like it's one of those where, from a fan perspective, I would love to see it. I would love to be able to go to a show like half an hour from my house and watch Oak do his thing. Right, I would love to. From a wrestler perspective, I understand that the quality of the competitors and the matches that he's getting in these places, whilst he may be limited in how much he's wrestling, he's probably getting so much more XP points, to use a video game analogy, than he would do if he was wrestling everywhere else. It's there's no right or wrong answer. But yeah, I do know what you mean.
You make a good point though. Yeah.
No, I hear you. In terms of like, because I know we as wrestling fans can be like, the more somebody is out and about, the more they're being celebrated, which it's kind of true. It's like the victory lap of like, hey, yeah, you did well, you're here, you're there. Like, and that's always and that's always like, I would say that's always worth it. I would say you should probably do one of those. You should do a year where you take everything that you can get. But yeah, I agree with you though, man. I agree and I don't agree, but I get the sentiment.
Absolutely.
I agree with the sentiment 100%. He should be celebrated.
Now, Tommy Kyle has been in touch via YouTube. Thank you for watching, Tommy Kyle. I don't understand the context of this. ME3, Girth, or Quarian?
So I'm playing.
I'm not a gamer. Is that something to do with gaming? Please enlighten us.
Yeah. So I'm playing Mass Effect. So Geth and Quarian are different species in that Mass Effect universe. And in Mass Effect 3, you have to make a decision about the fate of either species. And he's asking me which one I would pick. I've only played Mass Effect 3 twice, and both times I picked the Quarians. So
Fair enough.
This question.
There we go. Thank you for your question, Tommy. Keep sending them in. Keep sending in your questions for Warren Banks. Just ping them through to us using your chosen device, and we'll do our best to answer every single one. But thanks to everybody that's reached out to us so far. I want to take it all the way back now to kind of maybe when you were a young wrestling fan growing up. When did pro wrestling first come into your life? Do you remember kind of like your formative years when you were kind of watching wrestling on the TV, or was it via computer games? How did wrestling come into your life?
I think it's one of those where wrestling was never not in my life.
Really?
Wow. It's one of those where I can't tell you how I became a fan because I don't remember. I just remember it was always there. Like even our family friends and stuff would have, like the VHS of like WrestleMania or SummerSlam or whatever, like, and they would put them on. Like wrestling was always there. Some of my earliest memories, I think it was like watching. There was a period of time where it was on terrestrial TV in the UK, not the actual shows, but like they did like the 1 hour kind of highlight condensed versions. I can't remember which channel it was on, but yeah, I remember watching that, and there was a Bret Hart match. That's like my earliest memory of it, from what I can recall. Can't remember what channel it was on for the life of me, but I remember seeing Bret Hart doing stuff when I was like year 1, year 2, maybe something like that. It's always been wrestling's always been there, yeah.
And you mentioned Bret Hart there. Was he one of your favourites growing up, or were there other larger than life characters that you really kind of gravitated towards? Who were your guys or your girls when you were growing up? Who were you a big fan of?
So my favorite wrestlers, and I didn't realize this until I started wrestling, why I liked them. But one of my favorite wrestlers was Dean Malenko.
Nice.
I was like, I don't know why I like him. Like, he's just really smooth. There's something about him I like. I didn't realize until I started wrestling, I only liked him because he's tremendously good at his flipping job, right? I didn't realize I liked good wrestling before I knew what good wrestling was. But yeah, Dean Malenko was my guy. S.A. Rios had the sickest moonsault in the game. Flipping, what was his name? S.A. Rios, Dean Malenko. You've asked me and it's escaped me. Juventud Guerrero. I love Tuvi. Obviously, there were your favorites like The Rock and Austin and everyone else, but like there was like the undercard, the boys, you know what I mean? That stable of guys that you have a personal soft spot for. They may not be the most popular, but you love them. So yeah, like Dean Malenko, S.A. Rios, Juventud Guerrero. Edge at that time was kind of like, I don't think he was a main eventer back then. He was like an intercontinental tag team guy. But to this day, Edge is my favorite wrestler. If you ask who it was, it's Edge. Like, there's a reason I used to, you know, like,
still killing it today. Still, you know, like I say, using all of that experience in that amazing character that he's portraying now. And have you got a favorite match or a go-to match as a wrestling fan? That even today, if it's a grey Sunday afternoon, you can bring on the network and bring it up. Have you got a favorite match or a couple of favorite matches?
I do, but they're not on the WWE network. I don't think.
No, that's fine.
So one of them was New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it was it's Katsuyori Shibata versus Kazuchika Okada. It's unfortunately the match where he did the headbutt, which nearly flipping killed him.
Yeah.
But in terms of physical storytelling in a match, like I used to show people 2 matches about storytelling and wrestling. People didn't get it. I would show them that because it's physical storytelling in that everything that Okada tried to do, Shibata did better. And at the end of the match, they're doing all these swaps and exchanges, and they're both battered. And Okada pushes him out for the Rainmaker. And as he pulls it back, Shibata cocks his arm to hit him, but Okada's just too quick. And it's this thing of like, it was a second of getting smashed in the face, but instead he hit him with the Rainmaker and he wins. Like, and then the other one was British Strong Style versus was it Angel Cruz and Be Cool in OTT, where Tyler Bate was on both teams. And he's like the tag partner of both teams. It's the greatest like 25 minutes of nonsense I have ever seen. Pete Dunne has a bloke in a wheelchair and uses him as a battering ram. I think Angel Cruz tries to murder people. The accent has to be talked out of it. Like pedigrees happen galore. It's great. Like, so those are my 2 matches. I know they're not like classics or whatever. When I look at storytelling, you've got dramatic physical storytelling with New Japan, then you've just got absolute insanity with that, but they both make sense. It's like wrestling can be both.
That's the beauty of pro wrestling, though, isn't it? You know, and you know, these fans are only like one particular type of wrestling. It's like ice cream, isn't it? It's different flavors of ice cream, and we all like ice cream. It just depends what flavors you like. Yeah, absolutely. So, what was the inspiration then that finally? I don't know, was it a light bulb moment that made you think, yeah, I want to start training myself. I want to become one of those guys. I want to be a pro wrestler. Was it a long-term desire for yourself, or was it something that you kind of woke up in the middle of the night and said, yeah, I'm going to find a training school? How did it work for you?
I'd always kind of harbored desires of doing it, but I very much lived in a WWE bubble where I didn't think any wrestling existed outside of WWE after the invasion. So I was at uni. I was doing a law degree, which I hated. And I was, at the time, part of like a nice little online fan group of a few like bloggers and stuff. And they were talking about British wrestling. And I was like, oh, that was like World of Sport. Everyone says, oh, Big Daddy, giant haystacks. No. It was like, no, there's indie wrestling happening like on a weekly basis all over the country. I was completely unaware of it. So found out it was true. It wasn't lying to me. Looked up training schools near my house where I was based at the time. I went to training, and yeah, that was it. Like, just from there, we went on, did it, liked it, kept going, and here we are, pretty much. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's not like it wasn't a light bulb moment, as you said. I didn't wake up. It was something I'd always wanted to do. And I remember saying, like, you know, if I take a suplex and I hate it, I know it's not for me. I just wanted to try. I wanted to dip my toe, and yeah, it all went downhill from there, innit? Like,
No, but I mean, you spent, I think, a decent chunk of your first couple of years as a tag team wrestler, didn't you? And you spent
yeah,
a lot of time with Kent Nelson. I think he broke into the business about the same time as yourself. You were the Unbreakables, if I'm not mistaken, and I think
that
it
was
was
us.
Hope and Apex that you were wrestling for.
Yeah,
So it's quite fascinating to me and interesting to me that you both come in around the same time within a few months for each other. You team together. You spent the first couple of years pretty much inseparable, and you go on to actually get a bit of success. What were those first couple of years like as a tag team wrestler, learning the ropes with Kent, and like I say, kind of finding your feet together as you were going along? Really,
I loved it. Like wrestling was it still is fun, but wrestling was, I think, so much more fun because everything was new to us then. But I say this about Kent all the time. Like, this isn't a knock on any of my 8-7 brothers because, like, we're fine, we're cool, we're good. But I remember with Kent where I wouldn't need to check where he was because I always knew. Like, I'm in the ring and I don't need to check where he stood or what he's doing. I just know. And it's the same vice versa. Like, he always knows where I am. Like, we have this chemistry, this bond that it's kind of hard to, I can't break it down scientifically. It's just he always knows what I'm doing and I always know what he's doing, which meant working with him was an absolute dream.
yeah.
Like we'd be backstage and I'll be like, "Do you want to try doing this thing today?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And we go out and do it. And we would do it like well. Like we didn't practice anything. Like everything that we despite us being a tag team, we never actually trained. We trained together initially, but we never trained specifically as a tag team. We wouldn't go in there and do tag drills or practice stuff or anything
Wow.
like that. We could just do them. And it was just this natural like flow and this bond and this chemistry. Like but yeah, as time went on, sort of we moved in like different directions geographically, for one, which meant we couldn't work together as much as we used to. And then a lot of the places that we did work kind of like had different plans for us and stuff like that. So we kind of drifted apart in time. But yeah, I would love to work with him again, man, because it would be a dream. Like I say, it was so easy. Some of the easiest stuff I've ever done.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and like I
Yeah,
say, doing backstage stuff with Sacrifice this year, I've got to know Kent very well, and he's really good behind the mic as well. The kind of promo, but I mean, you did eventually go on to win the Saints of Sacrifice Tag Team Championships with Kent in 2018. But I mean, 2018 in particular, just going through the research, that was a real breakout year for you as a solo guy, as a singles wrestler. You know, you won tournaments with Hope, didn't you? I think it was the Hope Future title tournament, the DOA World Cup. You went on to pick up the Hope Future Championship, the Hope 24-hour Hardcore Championship, the Ultimate Sacrifice title with Sac Pro, and of course the tag titles later on that year. So 2018, like I say, when you did a lot more solo stuff, that really kind of proved quite fruitful for you, didn't it? And like I say, it was your breakout year as a single star, in my opinion, anyway.
yeah. No, 2018 was wild. Like it was the first year I got like proper gear, like tights and kick pads and all
Really?
that. Um, and yeah, it kind of just went on from there. I kind of started investing more in myself as a wrestler. When I started seeing like my calendar was full and I was being given these opportunities and stuff, I was like, okay, it's no longer just a thing you do on the side and kind of hope it works out. You need to start getting your head down and working at it. Um, and yeah, 2018 was, I think 2018 was a nice breakout year for sure. And I think 2019 was like a good kind of, it's not a fluke, this is real kind of year. That's how I felt it went. Because 2019 was when I had a WWE tryout. I did like Attack and I did all this fun, crazy stuff. So yeah, 2018 and 2019 were like a crazy few years in terms of, oh, this is a fun hobby to, yeah, I could make this my job. Hold on a second.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't realize you had a WWE tryout, and I tell
Didn't
you
realize.
tell us a bit about that experience. And you know, I mean, who was there with you? And kind of, I'm guessing everybody I've spoken to that's had a WWE tryout have had these kind of like light bulb moments, either speaking to Regal or just kind of going through the drills. And what was some of the, I don't know, some of the inspirational moments for you during your trial?
I think for me, one thing was how flipping supportive and lovely everybody was.
Right.
Like, I'm sure whatever NDA we've signed is probably expired. I don't think they care anymore anyway. But like, I won't say the name specifically. Regal was there, as you can imagine, but the others, everyone that was there was so flipping helpful. Like to the point where you're like, you guys are being really nice, relax. Like, it's cool. I appreciate the encouragement. Like, it's just, they were lovely, which really stood out in terms of just how desperate they were to help you get better, like at what you were doing. In every capacity, their attention to detail was tremendous. Like, I learned a lot from it. People that were there, I think some of them got used on TV shortly afterwards. Again, I don't want to kind of drop them in if I mention their names specifically, but there are a few people there that are doing very well now, as you can imagine, and a few people there that are signed. Some of them are over in the States. But yeah, like, I will say one thing about doing it. It's as lovely as everybody was, it wasn't for me. I went into it kind of thinking I want to go in there, enjoy myself, and absorb as much as I can. But I would be lying if I said I desperately wanted a job with WWE at that time. And having done it when I was there, I was like, yeah, this isn't necessarily my bag. I'm not. It's like chalk and cheese. I'm not built for the place. There's nothing wrong with the place. I'm just not built for it. That's all. But like, I would happily do another one, because if nothing else, it's a tremendous few days of like working out and conditioning. I'll tell you that much. Like, and you get Nando's. I'm not sure if they still do it. I know times are tight. But that Nando's was worth the hardship, I'll tell you. Like,
absolutely. But at least you went through that, and you won't forever be asking yourself, what if, you went through that experience. It's not quite for you, but who knows what the future might hold, and how your mind might differ in the future. But you mentioned 2019, like I say, you had the dark match for Progress. You mentioned the tryout. Going into 2020, you had all this momentum. And then, of course, we had the pandemic. And like I say, after a fantastic few years before that, and all that momentum, and then it kind of came to a screeching halt. Where was your mind at when you had this realization that, shit, this is real, and all my shows have been cancelled, and I'm going to be sat at home for months on end? As a performer, as a competitive guy, where was your mind at?
It sucked, man. It absolutely sucked. It was the last match I had was at Riptide against TJ Cooper, and we did like this 6.5 minute mad sprint. And at that time, I felt like everything was clicking. I was like, I understand who Warren Banks is. I understand who I am. I understand how I wrestle. I understand the flow of multiple types of matches and how to work different crowds and stuff. Not to say that I was complete, because I don't think any wrestler ever fully is complete, but like, I was making huge strides. I wasn't taking baby steps, I was striding. And so when we got locked inside, you know what? There's a line from a movie called Collateral, and Tom Cruise says, you need to take comfort in the fact you never had a choice. And that's how it felt. It was like, we don't have a choice. So the kind of anger or frustration wasn't there, because the world was dealing with this horrible virus that none of us had an immunity to. So I just kind of went, there's more important things at stake than me being able to kick people in the face like a few times a week. So it sucked. I won't lie, it sucked. The first week I was like doing like back bumps on like a mattress in the garden and stuff like that. I got in really good shape, like cardio wise and stuff, but just lockdown went on for too long. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm doing the montage stuff. I'm doing like body weights and burpees. Okay, yeah, no, never mind. Like, but no, it was tough. It was tough for everybody. But as I say, from a competitive standpoint, I feel like I took it in stride, knowing that there was nothing that could be done about it. It's one of those. It's one of those.
And did you use the time? I mean, my question is, did you use the time productively? And you've already said that you got yourself in the best shape of your life. You were still, taking back bumps in the back garden. But did you think about how you wanted to be presented or perceived coming out of lockdown? Did you think about your character? Did you think about your gear? Did you go through any kind of like changes in terms of how you want to be perceived coming out of it?
I did. So like one of the things, like when I came out of lockdown, I came out with like these bright yellow tights, and like different hair, slightly different hair and stuff like that. It was one of those where, in terms of putting to use the timing and figuring out what I wanted to be going forward, I realized I was holding on to a lot of, I'm not sure if negative emotion is the right word, but a lot of what I did in wrestling was just, I'm angry. I'm mad all the time, which isn't really what I want to portray. So when we came back, I kind of initially did ask like a character arc of, there's this psycho who eventually gets a grip and realizes he doesn't need to be a psycho to be good at what he does. and there's more to like life and sport and everything else that comes when you let go of anger, because I was an angry guy for many years. So to say that merch, gear, all of that stuff, it was just accept the fact that anger is a part of you. It does drive what you do sometimes, but it doesn't control you fully. Which is why like I'm coming out with bright yellow gear, happy stuff like your bright yellow shirt. It's like a nice thing to see, right? So yeah, that was kind of like how I went with it. It's just it took some time for that message to be conveyed, obviously because of the structure of the filming of the progress stuff. I didn't kind of complete that arc until like fans came back at the start of 2022. I think that was like the beginning of, oh wait, he can smile, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah. A question that came into us before we went live, Warren, and it's from Jay White, good friend of mine and promoter of Immortal Wrestling. What inspired the nickname the Nigerian Kaiju? So I don't think we've touched on that yet, but give us the origins of that and when you started using it as well.
Okay, so the origins of it, I was playing around with some sort of moniker for a little while from like 2018 because I didn't have one. I was part of the Unbreakables, but I wasn't anything. When the Unbreakables drifted apart, I was just going by the Unbreakable Warren Banks for a while. In terms of inspiration of it, so Kaiju, as some people may or may not know, is sort of like a term in Japanese which means strange beast, and it's kind of given to a certain genre of monster and monster films, which is this huge attacking force from wherever, and people have to kind of band together to beat it, or another kaiju beats it. And I was a big fan of that sort of stuff, like a huge fan of like kaiju films and series and things like that, like Neon Genesis Evangelion. I know it's more of like a psychological sci-fi thing, but they're fighting kaijus. They're called angels. They're kaijus. Godzilla is the king of the kaijus, like Ghidorah, all that. I can go on and on and on, but I always loved it. So in Hausa, which is the language I speak, which is a West African dialect used commonly in the north of Nigeria, where I'm from, I was playing around with things that sounded cool. So I was like, Sadiki, which means king, which I was throwing around in the lead up to the Gresham feud. I was going nuts. So I was like, Sadiki, king of what? King of what? It just sounds cool, but king of what? And I was like, Sadiki Ojo, which is like king of monsters, which is what Godzilla is. So I was like, cool, keep it Kaiju. Where am I from? I am Nigerian. Like, this is true. So yeah, that was it. Like, I know it's not like a cool complex backstory, but it was something that sounded cool in both languages, and ties into two things about me, which is, yes, I was born in Nigeria. I'm very close to my culture and everything about it, and I absolutely love kaijus. I think they're the coolest thing in the world. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And I think I'll probably speak for a few others here, but it's a pretty cool sounding nickname, to be honest with you. It's a very cool sounding name, and it also kind of, you know, gives us a bit of a glimpse into the character of Warren Banks as well. So it kind of opens that up a bit more too. But let's have a look, see where we are. So I've got to talk about your spear now, because your spear is pretty damn devastating. And I think I'm going to bring up the same picture as earlier on. And Big Damo, as big as he is, he's not gonna withstand that, is he? But tell us about that spear. So whether you've got a torn rotator cuff or not, nobody's going to withstand the big spear there. Tell us about that. When did you discover that was your move and that was what you're going to put people down with?
There's a funny story about it. So as every wrestler knows, when you start wrestling, it's not the most glamorous thing. So obviously I was trained by Gene Money. We were doing a show for a promotion, the person who used to own Apex. So we're doing a show in a pub in Northampton, and we set up the ring, we finish, and we're like, this ceiling's really low, like really low. Like, I can't jump, I can't suplex, I can't do anything. So it's like, you need to win, so what are you gonna win with? And so like, and Gene just goes, let's do a spear. I was like, I've never done one before, but okay. Then the room exploded. I was like, oh, I'll do another one, like another show. And then that room exploded, and the rest was history. So the spear came about because the ceiling was too low for me to do anything else, and it just stuck. So there we go.
And it is pretty devastating. You see, you know, Goldberg using it, Edge using it, and a lot of other people. But did you take any inspiration from some of those? I know you said you're a big Edge fan, probably your most favorite wrestler. And a lot of people do the spear differently, don't they? But you really kind of throw your whole body into it. you leave the ground. Have you modified how you deliver the spear over the years as well?
Yeah. So in terms of inspiration, I looked at Goldberg, but like I wasn't his one is devastating, but I wasn't too big a fan in terms of his feet can come off the floor and things like that. With Edge, I like the build up to it. I like the run because he's a huge guy, but then I noticed he kind of hits and kind of goes to the side and lands on his knees. I just wanted to go through people. That's what I wanted it to look like. Because I'm 6'3" and I'm like fairly large. I'm not massive, but I'm like fairly large. So I think the visual of me just colliding with someone is cool. Everyone can understand it. Everyone's had someone run into him at some point. So in terms of modifying it, I kept suffering from really bad like shoulder and neck problems because every time I would land, I would try and put my arms up to stop myself. Right. Sometimes it would work, but it would jar. Other times I wouldn't get them down in time. I'd land and twist my head on my neck, which is why I now do the version where I flip through it to just protect myself now. Because the crazier it looks, the more it hurts me. The landing sucks. Like I have to hit them harder, and the landing is terrible. So I started doing the flip to kind of just hit them, and then, hit the booster seat button, and just pop out and escape and land safely. So yeah, that's all I've done. Just protect myself a bit more.
Pretty cool. Yeah, like I say, one of the most devastating finishes in the UK wrestling. But we've had some more questions come through, Warren, and Ollie Spring has been in touch. And he wants to know your thoughts or your feelings on Jerry. Is that Jerry Suave?
Okay, I'm gonna send him some abuse shortly after this.
Tell us about that character. Are there any photos?
I think there may be some in the depths of Facebook somewhere. But Jerry Suave is like.
Is he this guy here?
You know what? I'm gonna go with that. That's Jerry Suave.
Is that him?
That's not him, but that's
fair enough.
Going forwards, it will be. So I was trying to think of a wrestling name, a wrestling moniker, because I didn't want to use my real name for a variety of reasons. And someone who we were training with at the time, a lovely bloke. I won't say his name on the podcast, but he's a lovely bloke. He just was cracking up at a Family Guy bit where Peter Griffin pulls into a car park and he's like, "Oh, look at all these fancy hoity-toity guys. Oh, look at Mr. Jerry Suave." And some dude in like a turtleneck and a ponytail gets out of a car park, a space reserved for Jerry Suave. And he was just like, "Hey, bro, you should be called Jerry Suave." I mean, not knowing any better, I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like it's better than no name. So yeah, I went by that for a little while because whilst I've been wrestling for 6 years, there was a period of time where I did train. I did have, I think, 3 or 4 matches. But then a combination of injuries and law school meant that I didn't wrestle again for like 3 or 4 years. So I don't really count that because I had to come back and relearn everything because the people who taught me had no business teaching anybody anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a case of like, I don't count. I didn't get paid for it. There's no footage of it. Like I don't count it. So yeah. But yeah, that's where Jerry Suave came from. And I think towards the tail end of me kind of going off to do law school and other things was when I first met Ollie. So that's where he probably got it from. That son of a bitch.
And Ollie's been in touch again. Your favorite road trip stories involving dogs. Now, there must be some story behind this. Give us some context and tell us what he seems to think there's a funny road trip story involving dogs.
There is a funny road trip story involving dogs. So this was like, we had to do a show out east in like Great Yarmouth. And this was during that period of time where like, like those cold snaps we used to get, where everything would just freeze over, roads would be snow, like people wouldn't get to work. It was during one of those. So I had to be like dug out of the front of my house. My car wouldn't leave. They had to come and rescue me because I was going to meet them somewhere. I couldn't get my car out. So they had to come, push my car back into position, and I hopped in with them. And we were on the road and we're tired, we're cold, we're hungry. We're like hanging on for dear life because the roads are icy, trying to get to the show. And we pull up to like a roundabout with traffic lights. And we're all angry and we look to the left and there's a car with like a dog in it. And we're like, "Oh my God, there's a dog. This is the coolest thing ever. There's a dog. There's a dog." And then as the light turns yellow, like, "This is great. This was awesome." And another dog pops up. And that dog's happy to see us. And we're happy to see the dog. And the dog's going crazy because we're going crazy. And we're just like going nuts. And then they sped up. And it was like, that was the greatest moment of our wrestling careers up until that point. We're miserable, we're tired. Seeing a dog will cheer you up, right? but then getting a surprise second dog that's happy to see you as well. That's why
even better.
That's
That's exactly. Major day. But everybody from going forward, every guest has got to give me a road story involving dogs. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. Let's see where we are. So just a few questions from me just to wrap up the interview then, Warren. Give us your top 3 favorite opponents that you've ever been in the ring with, and if there's particular reasons why they might be your favorites. Have you got any particular favorite opponents that you've had over your 6 years?
Sorry, we're celebrating my puppy. He peed in the place he's supposed to be, and he's coming to be proud about it. My top 3 favorites. Number 1 would be Chris Ridgeway, because he wrestles how I want to wrestle. He fights how I want to fight. We have a chemistry. We've never had a bad match. We have the same philosophy on wrestling. He tells me to do a lot less than I do. One thing I will be doing, I may not get it directly from the man himself. As I said, I need to work on certain aspects of my game that I want to change up if I do come back. But I'll be following his lead on a number of things. I'll say that much. So I'd say Riddy is in the top 3 for sure. Number 2, I'm trying to think. Number 2 would probably be. Are we allowed to say one-off opponents as well? Because we've only wrestled once.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Number 2 would be OJMO.
Good.
Would be Michael Oku. Yeah, because again, the chemistry so easy. Just the potential for craziness is there. Like, that's my guy. Because I love that photo so much. I love it. Because again, as I said, the scenario leading up to that match was not ideal at all, and we still pulled it out. So if we had ideal circumstances, I feel we turned the roof off with ease. And then this is in no particular order. I said number 2. I'm saying 2 because he's the second person I named, not ranking. And then the other one is Omari. Right. Omari is somebody who we talk about some of the best wrestlers, people who are underrated, so on and so forth. There is nothing Omari can't do. It's infuriating. If he wants to run up from the floor to the top rope with ease and then do a springboard and do a backflip off it, he'll do it. There's nothing that guy cannot do. He's like 6'5" or something mad. Like, he dwarfs me. Wow. He should not be as smooth and as agile and as strong as he is. Like, he picked me up for a move, and I had no say in the matter. I couldn't stop him if I wanted to. I felt like a child. It's mad. Omari is the guy. So I'd say my favorite guy. I can't say enough good things. If I did, we'd be here all night. He's tremendous. He's so good. Awesome. He's another guy who you say, like, people should be in more places. I know he's wrestling where he wants to and as often as he wants to, which is good for him. But
I've got to say that's a wrestler I need to look into and watch a bit more of. Check
out his stuff. If you have the opportunity to see him, do not miss it. He is tremendous. He is tremendous. 100%. So I'd say my top 3: Riddy, Omari, and Oku.
And my final proper question for you, Warren, is so you've had a great 6 years. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, really, considering how quick your kind of career took off with the tags, and then 2018 it kind of exploded. You were branching out everywhere. 2019, we won't talk about 2020, but 2021 and 2022 have been pretty good up until the injury, of course. But have you got a proudest moment? What would you say would be your proudest moment where you can kind of, if it all ended today, you could look back and say, at least I did that, or I'm really, really happy with how that went?
My proudest moment it's a tie between Gresham and Jomo. Morrison, sorry. Everyone calls him flipping Jomo.
Johnny Progress.
I call him Jomo, but now I'll call it to his face. Being able to stand across the ring from somebody you watched on TV, somebody who you played as in video games, somebody who, when he was active in the WWE, was one of. I got his T-shirt. Like, I didn't tell him this, obviously. I got one of his T-shirts. Is in my house back home. Like, I was a huge John Morrison fan, and being able to get in the ring with him, the match, like you said, we were both really hurt. It wasn't what either of us wanted. But when it was said and done, I pinned him, and as I'm rolling away, he goes, "Good shit, brother." Yeah. And I'm like, I can retire. I can retire. And then I was told later on by someone who shall remain nameless that Johnny Progress, was chatting to a few other workers. Didn't know he was being listened to. He was speaking to another person who was in the WWE previously, and was speaking honestly. And he said like, he goes like, "Oh, the kid's good." I'm not a kid, but he was like, "Nah, it was good shit. It was really good shit. It wasn't his fault. It's good shit." And I'm like, he's saying that in private. He doesn't need to. So, John Morrison thinks I'm a good wrestler. I don't have anything else to do. I can quit there. I mean, that's it for me.
Yeah, no, and like I say, just to kind of hear that, or that's just enough to fill your heart and make you think, that's it. Superb. Before we let you go, an opportunity to throw out to my listeners, to my viewers, people that have been watching today, where can they find you on social media? So if they want to find out more about Warren Banks, say hi, get to see some footage, get to buy some merch, where can they get in touch? Now, I've got all the details running along the bottom there, and I'm going to bring up the fantastic graphic from
the technology.
Mate, I've got it all. But there we go. Where can we find you, Warren?
You can find me at Man Like Banks on pretty much every platform. I think the only one that is different is TikTok, which is 87Banks, and Twitch, which is Stream Like Banks. Everything else is pretty uniform at Man Like Banks, or just search Warren Banks and then whatever it is you want to know. Come say hi. Come talk to me about video games or comic books or anything else. Like, I got a lot of free time, so I'm ready to talk. Tell me what your favorite Predator film is, or the franchise. That's what I'm on at the moment. I watched Prey, really good, really enjoyed it. I put it neck and neck with the original Predator. It's very good.
Awesome. We're gonna have to check out. And you've got a big cartel as well, sir.
Oh yes, of course. I think it is manlikebanks.bigcartel.com. I think
it will appear in a second, but I think you're absolutely spot on. And
that's a shirt. That's the one.
There we go. That is a pretty neat shirt. I don't know how that's kind of gone under my radar, but that is a pretty sweet design by Alec Hugill, who's done a lot of cool designs for UK talent.
You knocked it out in like 8 hours. Very talented person.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So, like I say, we spoke at the beginning of the podcast about the prognosis and hoping to get you back within the year, hopefully 8 months. But if you've got a message for your fans, for your followers, for your family, for your supporters, for anybody that's watching or listening to this episode of Wrestling with Johners, have you got a message for those people? What would you like to say?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's like speech. I'm like, I don't know.
From the heart.
From the heart, I just want to say thank you. Like, there's any one thing, regardless of what's happened or will happen, it's to approach this life and everything that happens in it with a sense of gratitude. Like, be thankful that you're able to experience the things you experience and have the people around you that you have and do the things that you get to do. Because there will come a day where you won't be able to do it anymore, and you'll wish that you treasured it. So I say it because that's how I live my life. There's a reason I'm not angry, I'm not bitter, I'm smiling so much despite, I'm going to be on the show for nearly a year, and I've got a big grin because it's like, I'm thankful that I was able to do it at all, you know? Awesome. Like, and I'm thankful that despite it happening, there's still other things that I can do with my life. I have a beautiful partner, a beautiful puppy who's tearing up the place. Like, I live a very rich and happy life. And I'm thankful that a bad shoulder is the only thing to have happened to me in wrestling, you know? So in terms of a message to the fans, like, it may be preachy, but just be thankful, man. I don't know when I'll be back. I don't know if I'll be back, if I'm being honest with you. I'm figuring it all out day by day. But just know that it won't be due to disdain. It won't be due to, I'm too cool for wrestling, they're super fat. None of that crap, none of that stuff that wrestlers like to throw online. I like, they're too cool. None of that. I am super thankful and treasure all of you. And any decision I make will be for the good of sort of me and my future and the future of my family. But there'll always be love in my heart for the fans and supporters of wrestling and British wrestling. And yeah, appreciate you. That's my message.
That's really awesome. But Warren Banks, you've been an amazing guest. Really, really appreciate you being part of this episode 254. And we'll catch you down the road, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you.